fun that way.
I'm Phoebe. It is very nice to make all of your acquaintances today.
Hi, Phoebe.
Hello. Welcome to Cambridge. Anybody a local on board?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Where are we all
that
visiting
includes
from?
you, I guess.
I've just recently started saying things like aluminium. Your accent, same as me. Not from around
No,
here.
not really.
He
Yeah.
grew up in Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's not one you hear very often. No
No,
wonder.
yeah.
You left. I'm from Virginia, but
Alright.
it is good for not very much unless you're involved in military or government. And folks up from front, where are you visiting from?
We live in London, but we're from California.
Oh boy.
Gives
It's
it
the
away.
American invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, and I thought I'd have a very British experience video
Oh,
taken.
Not too late for us to turn around. We can still get you on Sam's boat. He's one of the most English men I've ever met. He recently also had a baby.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
have
Right.
some conversations about that.
That would be,
Unfortunately,
yes,
I am
yeah.
26 years old and have no experience with that. So I guess we're going to have to get to know each other on a different basis.
Probably best. So I suppose you came here to study then, from all the way from Virginia?
No, I did not actually.
Really?
I
Okay.
finished my studies a few years ago in Virginia, and I did a study abroad experience in Stoke-on-Trent, which is
Stoke-on-Trent.
opposite end of the country.
Okay.
But liked it so much that I decided to come and live over here.
Nice.
My mum's English, so I've
Okay.
got dual
Ah,
citizenship.
right.
Made it the process a whole lot easier.
Yeah, definitely.
But Cambridge specifically, because it was the first place to take me up for an interview for a job.
Okay.
It was, of course, one of like 3 cities that I applied to, because it's got a lot of history and it's absolutely
It's
beautiful.
beautiful, yeah.
Close to the river as well. Where I'm from, there's a river constantly within about 30 minutes of you.
Okay.
What are we passing?
Oh,
Oh
no,
boy,
I'm
oh boy.
Oh.
Oh, all right. In the future, right-hand side, yeah? Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the right-hand side of you. Cool? Okay.
That was gentler than I expected.
Yes,
It's all right.
so this is your first experience of
I thought I was
hunting
going
in
to fly over to
Cambridge.
you guys, to be honest. Okay.
And that's the
We're not going to
reason-
sink, right?
No, absolutely not. These things are nearly impossible to capsize. And you do say that you get motion sick easily. I'm glad that you told me that, because normally would be around the time that I start making the boat go side to side, just to show you how not capsizable it is.
Okay.
Really close over there, don't worry.
You asked a question, and I went to answer it. What was it?
What are we passing?
Yeah, what are we...
So we are currently passing by one of the older institutions here. It is Magdalen.
Okay.
Magdalen was actually founded on top of another college called Buckingham. This is from the 1480s.
1480s. That was...
Yeah. But in front of us,
got wedged under. Okay.
we have something that's even older.
Stuck under that, bro.
Yeah. Sorry, we're...
Oh no. He's gonna try to push straight over you. Oh dear.
Is this supposed to be like bumper cars?
Yes. These boats are specifically made for contact with other boats.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Yeah.
As well as the walls.
Just got to keep your fingers away from the edges, I guess.
Exactly. Last place we were in the middle of 2 boats and them together. We are about to go under the oldest bridge in Cambridge. Now, the one that we have right here is from 1823. It is certainly not the oldest structural bridge, but the crossing has been here since 70 AD. And it was put in by the Romans who created this as a port of safety for their settlement 2 miles up the road. It's called Grantchester. And pretty much anywhere ending in Chester in England, like Manchester or Colchester, was once a Roman settlement. And we do still have the remnants of the Romans here, not just with Bridge Street, but we also have Castle Hill, tallest elevation point in Cambridge, which was built up by the Romans. And we also have 20 miles of Roman road present in Wandlebury Park, which is a straight shot from Cambridge, about 15 minutes in that direction. Many different people have come through this area over the years. We had the Normans, but we also had Anglo-Saxons and Vikings building the area as well. The Vikings are actually the one who founded Quayside back there. You typically only ever see that word in seaside towns. It's a word that means the mouth of the river is somewhere nearby, and it effectively functions as a port.
Ah.
And if you're thinking, how could it be a port if it's 50 miles inland? This is before the fens were drained. And the fens make up close to 1/8 of the land in England. It's all north of here, and it used to be completely underwater for the majority of the year. When they opened it up in the 1650s, Cambridge was no longer a port of trade. It was now an inland university city. And when the Vikings came through and built up the port, they did so very successfully, but they were pushed out. And when they were pushed out, they took the city with them and burned it to the ground in true Viking fashion, so that all that was left were the Roman roads. The Anglo-Saxons came through, built up all of the churches on these old roads, and it was these churches that attracted the first students. Back then, you pretty much exclusively were studying theology, becoming a future member of the church. Many of these colleges that we have here today, particularly the older ones, were founded on top of things like monasteries, hostels, and hospitals. These were all places that these students could go for a hot meal and a safe place to rest their head at night. Because of course back then, monks couldn't carry money, so they relied on charity to survive. Colleges effectively take this need away from the students. They provide that hot meal and a safe place to rest your head, but they also provide spiritual and academic guidance if needed. Some of the basic functions that form up a college: the porter's lodge, basically the entryway to the college. You have somebody stationed there at all times who recognizes the faces of all of the students at the college. This way, they know who's meant to be there and who is not. The master's house is also typically located on the college campus, because the duty of the master is effectively making sure that the students stay in line. Much easier to do if you live amongst them. Of course, the student accommodation is also present here. Curiosity got the better of both of us, I think.
Yeah.
Huh.
We actually have been sailing a lot.
One more time?
We have been sailing a lot in our life, so we used to look around. That was not look too attractive.
Yeah, that was clear. Don't know what that could possibly be. I'll have to give things another little look-see. Hello, Ben.
Another blind.
Oh.
Classic. Yeah, so this is what us punters like to call the concussion bridge.
Oh boy.
And what he's just done there, I typically reserve for people who don't speak the best English. Physical humor wins out every single time. Effectively, when you go under the bridge, you basically I have a different party trick.
Okay,
Which is-
looking forward. Whoa!
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Hunter limbo.
Nice little stretch.
Lambada.
How long do you have to train to be able to do this?
Because you can't have Moors there.
Yeah, so mooring.
You know what a Moor is? The Moors are the people that came through and conquered Islam.
Haha. Mooring is basically the boat equivalent of no parking. Yeah, the colleges don't want you to bring your boats around here because it bumps up against the sides and breaks down the stone. And it also means that there's pretty bad erosion on the sides.
Uh-huh.
So they don't let the students park here, but that doesn't stop people from trying. Especially during the end of the year examination balls. The easiest way to break into one of these balls is to go to the one at St. John's or Trinity here.
Balls
They're the
as
largest colleges here, so you are way less likely to be noticed if you do break in.
Why are you breaking into college?
Oh, because they charge admission.
Oh.
Yeah, so in order to get into any one of the colleges that we see today, you have to pay in between 8 and 12 pounds.
This is to do what?
What's that?
To visit, not
Yeah,
to study.
just to go inside. I know,
Punts,
it's pretty
I'm in,
crazy.
yeah.
Especially considering that I think most of you probably paid, what, like 20 pounds each of you?
what? No.
If that?
Yeah. That's about it. She paid. I don't know.
Yeah.
13.
13, she says.
In the winter time, it's between 25 and 20 pounds.
Okay.
If you guys did any better than that, don't tell anybody else on the boat.
Yeah.
But yeah, considering that you get to these 7 colleges for that same price as what you would pay to get into 1 or 2, it's a great deal.
Yeah.
And you get to like drink champagne. You get to just kind of cuddle up with your loved ones. And you have somebody telling you all of the cool information about it, which you definitely don't get if you just pay to get into college.
So you stay on the right or on the left side?
So I'm meant to stay on the right-hand side, but I'm sure you can tell
It's not really happening.
it's a little bit difficult
Some
to stay on the
amateurs,
right-hand
yeah.
side, given that there are quite a few people who adamantly refuse to stay on one side of
It's
the
all right.
river.
We're an American boat, so it's all right.
Maritime law states that no matter the body of water and no matter the craft, you are meant to stay on the right-hand side to prevent collisions.
Okay.
But as we have seen, that isn't exactly in practice.
I just wanted to make sure you knew.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. In fact, most of these boats, not this one, but most of these boats have little stickers on them to tell you, stick to the right-hand side.
You just shrank it. It's like a bicycle. I mean, what's the worst thing you're going to do? Fall in the water?
Trinity College here beats out St. John's on quite a few levels. St. John's is the largest and wealthiest college here. Excuse me. Second largest and second wealthiest. There we go. End of the day, brain. St. John's is the second largest, second wealthiest, whereas Trinity is the largest and the wealthiest.
Okay.
Most of these colleges take about 500 to 600 students at most. Trinity here takes 7,500. And it's because they're the only ones who can really afford to do so, with a net worth equivalent to the annual GDP of Fiji. 1.3.
Somebody fell in the
Somebody's
water.
fallen in.
Yeah.
Oh no.
just on the slide.
Crap.
You get experience here.
How does that even happen?
Well, if you're the punter, have you ever fallen in?
Twice.
Okay.
Now, one of
how
these
how
times-
many years have you done this?
2.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm looking
That's
at
a good average.
good odds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, bless her heart. Oh my god.
She's standing, I think.
Yeah, both times that I fell in was in the middle of summer as well.
Yeah,
So
Quite a balancing act over there, isn't
it
it?
is.
Do we have a blanket we
okay
can
with
donate?
Everything all right? Everything all right over there?
She's okay? Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh. In October.
It's better than
Set the
January, I
pitch
guess.
With,
Oh my
library
God.
there.
Yeah.
So yes, this upcoming bridge, you can see that people are actually standing on it. This is the only public footbridge that goes
Yeah,
across.
I tried to sneak in to cross that bridge. They wouldn't let me, so I had to
No.
my morning running route, but ended up crossing here.
Yeah, I have seen King's College open for the marathons.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
they do. There's a half marathon through King's
Oh.
and Jesus College, which is actually physically the largest college at Cambridge
I
University.
did see that on the map. Yes,
Yeah,
that was
they've
one of the
got-
recommended running routes, actually.
Yes, and that would actually be perfect.
University, do you know?
What's that?
Cambridge University?
What about?
How many are in there?
Oh, 31 colleges. Yeah, you actually apply to the college, which then gives you acceptance to the university. So they call it a collegiate university, and you actually receive your diploma from the college as well. They're basically separate institutions that all kind of fly under the flag of Cambridge, a bit like the United States of America.
Oh, so you go to Cambridge, but you actually go to a specific school in Cambridge.
Yes, so effectively, the way that you apply to Cambridge goes like this. You take the Oxbridge exam. This is the Oxford-Cambridge exam. They don't work together on a whole lot, but they did work together on this exam, and it's because once you pass it, they make you choose in between the universities. You cannot apply to both Oxford and Cambridge. Once you decide and reach out, there is a special board of people who work here specifically to help find you your college of best fit. And this might have something to do with your political ideology, your religion, or a specific interest in a very specific area in your field. There might be a fellow, a professor at one of these colleges that wrote their dissertation on this a few years ago and got hired for it. So they would be a really excellent resource for you as you begin your own studies. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. By the end of it, they usually come up with 2 or 3 colleges. You decide which one you want to apply to, and then you apply to it. Now there is a very realistic chance that you could choose the wrong college. Some of these colleges have very few slots available for certain subject areas, just because they don't have enough resources in that department to take on more students. So you might have the stuff to get into one college, but you might not decide to apply to that college. You go for another one which rejects you.
Right.
So it's a big gamble for a lot of students here, quite frankly. And if you don't get into that college, then it's a bit of a too bad, so sad situation. You can try again next year, or try Oxford. Maybe they'll take you instead.
Oxford works the same way, also multiple colleges?
Yes, exactly the same way for Oxford. You got to go through that same major process, really. Now, most people, if they can name a college at Cambridge University, it's the one that we're coming to now. Welcome to King's College, home of the King's College Chapel, a building that took almost 100 years to complete.
This is what a king was.
It was Henry VI who founded this college and began the King's College Chapel, but if you take a walk around it, the foundation is a completely different color than the rest of the building. Henry VI was the last Plantagenet, and he was taken off of the throne by Edward IV in the Wars of the Roses. And he's one of the last royals to ever be interred in the Tower of London, where he, quote-unquote, died peacefully in his sleep.
Yeah.
English kings to attempt to finish that building. You wouldn't guess it from the size of it, but when Henry VI started with the design, this was meant to house 12 scholars at a time. But of course, all of these English kings had very big personalities, not exactly the kind that you say no to. So this building went through multiple changes over the years. The one that we have now looks nothing like the original design.
Oh no, okay.
But today, though, not so bad what we ended up with. It's the second largest chapel in Europe. Only the Sistine is any bigger. And it's only on a technicality because they're parapets. The pointy bits on the corners are just a little bit taller than ours. If we are talking volume of the chapel, how many marbles can we fit in this container? This one's actually a tiny bit bigger. It also features something called a fan vault ceiling. This means that the heavy archways normally found in churches and cathedrals are spread out in a fan-like shape, and it evenly distributes their weight all along the ceiling, and it means that you don't need columns to stop the building from collapsing in on itself. And this is Bodley's next to us. Student accommodation. Considered to be the nicest accommodation at all of Cambridge University, really. It's one of the few buildings that I've been in myself, and I can attest.
Really?
It's nice in there. A lot nicer than anything I was ever given as a student.
Not too convinced about the heating, though. Not with those windows.
Do you know?
What?
This part of the building is from 1955. So it's
Okay.
actually a lot newer than it looks.
Okay.
Given the front of this building is from 1892.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all good. Yeah, you're fine. Basically, the part of the building that we're passing by is the brutalist rendition of the Gothic Revivalist building it started out as. On this one building, there is 60 years of English architecture.
Okay.
Believe it or not, Bodley's is only 7 years older than this building. Immediately to its right, the Erasmus. Bodley's was finished in 1955, whereas the Erasmus building began construction. Oh dear. I'm gonna give you a little nudge, my friend. My apologies, but it has to be this way.
My apologies. You just hit Darwin.
Darwin, yes indeed. Thank you for your assistance up front there, sir. Perfect. Yep. Amazing. So yes, the Erasmus building from 1962.
Look at him.
It was actually designed by Sir Basil Spence. No jokes, please. Yes, he did have his knighthood in architecture. Unfortunately for Sir Basil Spence, this building has the reputation of being the ugliest on the river.
It is pretty ugly.
Yeah, the one that's really, really ugly. Yeah, that one. It was intended to be 6 stories tall, but as you can see, it was effectively cut in half by Cambridge University itself. The Queen's students chose the original design, but it was put on top of the Fellows' gardens. The Fellows, the professors, had an enormous problem with this.
Okay.
It's tradition, going back to when these colleges were monasteries, that the professors have their own separate meditation space. This is meant to be filled with flowers, trees. It's a really beautiful space for them. So you can imagine their shock and horror when they realized that that building was going to replace them. Cambridge was in between a rock and a hard place on this. Were they to go with the wishes of the students, or were they to listen to the fellows? They did neither. They pulled a King Solomon and cut it in half. is just a little bit of the interesting diversity of architecture that we have at Queens.
Oh, we're at Queens already.
We are.
Okay.
Since we passed by Baldwin's Court, we've been going through Queens.
All right.
Wonderful architectural triangle here. King's is the third wealthiest college here. Queens is one of the poorest. So they historically have not torn down all of their old buildings to reinforce and rebuild the things that they already have.
I think I recognize this. This is a mathematical bridge.
Very
isn't it?
good. They've been rebuilding the mathematical bridge since 1749. And it brings together two buildings that are 500 years apart. We of course have the 1960 student accommodation known as Cripps, the oldest building on the river, 1460.
Okay.
Oh, and you used to go
The
under
gray
it.
one, with all of these pins sticking in it, this is the Essex building from 1760.
Huh.
We got 1460, 1760, 1960.
Okay.
The Essex building was constructed with such poor, shoddy workmanship that in 1947, when there was a massive flood in Cambridge, it washed away the bridge behind me. It filled with bridge, which at the time was a cast iron bridge, a twin to Magdalen, where we first started off.
Okay.
But this one effectively snapped in half, and it began taking the Essex building with it. In less
Okay.
than a week, the entire wall of the Essex building had begun to fall into the river. So those pins are literally the only thing preventing the Essex building from collapse.
Really?
What's that?
Maybe this is not the
Oh my goodness, one more time.
Maybe this is not the door.
Yeah.